So I want to say a really warm welcome to the lovely Sophie Seddon. Welcome, Sophie, to this podcast. It's so lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for joining.
Oh, thank you so much, Nikki, for inviting me. I'm really excited about our conversation today. I can't wait to get into it.
Me too. So listen, there was not that long ago, actually, you came and spoke to one of our groups of women in leadership, so the ladies who were going through that transformation program. And the insights that you had to share in that conversation really were phenomenal. Hence the sort of reason I've invited you onto this podcast, because more people need to hear the wisdom and experience that you've gone through. So this is our brand new podcast, and it's all about from ordinary to extraordinary women who lead. And so we love speaking to really successful women in the construction industry, just like you, to find out some of your insights, some of your experience, and some of your guidance as well about how to be really successful as a woman in the construction industry. And so, first of all, I would like to start off by asking you, because the principle of this podcast is that we believe that every woman has their own remarkable story. So a remarkable story that would help us to understand how you've got to where you are today. So I would love to hear, what is your remarkable story and how have you ended up being so successful and the successful woman in construction that you are today?
Right. Well, I think where I'll start is at school. That seems like a really appropriate place to start. But I went to an all-girls school, which was interesting in itself. And I hated school. I really didn't like school. No, it wasn't for me. I was a little unruly, shall we say. And school made me feel like I was stupid. I I mean, I came out with some decent GCSEs and a good couple of A levels, but I didn't think I was very clever at all. The education system was just, it just didn't suit my brain or the way in which I learned, and really rebelled, I guess, is
Yeah.
one way of putting it. But yeah, when I was actually doing my A levels, I was really unsure what I wanted to do, but I knew I loved being creative. I was really good with my hands. And I just thought, and I loved fashion and being involved in getting dressed up, and I was very girly. So I thought, you know what, I want to go to university and I will go and study fashion. And that's what I did. Now, when I was actually doing my A levels, I had to run out of one of my exams to be sick. And I was like,
Mhm.
that's strange. Why, is it nerves? Is it this? Is it that? It turns out I was actually pregnant.
Wow.
So, yeah. So when I was 18, I fell pregnant with my eldest daughter, Olivia. Now, I went from living this very rebellious sort of teenage years in a private school, and living a very affluent lifestyle, to being thrown into the midst of, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant at 18 years old. What on earth do I do? But the one thing that I knew, Nikki, from the moment that I saw that positive pregnancy test, was that I loved that baby. And the person that you see in front of you today was born then. I became a very feisty, strong-willed girl who was not willing to give up on the things that she believed in. And I very strongly believed in, I wanted to bring this baby into the world, who I just loved from that very moment. Now, that feeling was not reciprocated with my family. So at the time, so things were made very, very difficult for me. I was living in it was very strange, but it's a long story and I won't go into lots of detail. But I was living in a shared house with no money at all. And with my partner at the time, who was the father of of my baby, who was very abusive, and the whole situation was just really terrible. It was traumatic. It was not a nice environment at all. But something within me kept telling me to keep going. You will find a way. We will get through this. And that's exactly what happened. I gave birth to the most beautiful little girl. And me and her, we got our shit together. I fought so hard to work. I carried on with my goal of going to university. I studied fashion at university. I got my degree. And I just powered on through, basically. It was really difficult, and there were some very, very challenging times, having absolutely no money and nowhere to live at the time, but we worked through it. We got there in the end. We got a house and whatever, and I carried on with university. But it was when I was at uni that I fell in love with marketing. One of my modules that I did at uni was marketing, and I just thought it was so fascinating, the psychological aspect to marketing, why consumers buy things, don't buy things. I just thought it was absolutely like really interesting. So I thought that's what I want to do. So I started applying for marketing jobs, and at that time, my dad actually said to me, "Soph, we are developing a marketing department in the business, in our family business, which is in construction. Why don't you come and work for us?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. I'm not working in construction, and I'm not working for you, Dad. Oh my God, couldn't think of anything worse." Anyway, 6 months of him absolutely like twisting my arm to come and work in the business, I eventually said yes. And I did. I've not looked back since. I fell in love with construction. I just thought it was such a fast paced, just interesting place. People were solving problems every day. They were creating things. They were, I don't know, I just found it so interesting, and I couldn't believe what the business actually was all about. You know, we work a lot in social housing and building social housing homes for people who I really saw that were in similar situations to the situations I was in. And I was thinking, oh my God, we actually work in environments where we change people's lives. And that I was really, really proud of the business that my family had, you know, set up and developed, and just thought, wow, God, it was amazing. So I just, you know, absolutely haven't looked back since. And I just think the construction sector is really misunderstood. And I think that one of the things that I'm really passionate about now, Nikki, is getting younger people to understand what our sector is all about, because it is incredible. You literally create things that stand there for the test of time. You know, they're historical. We create infrastructure. It's just an amazing place to be able to say that you work in that sector, in this sector. So yeah. So I went into the business and I started right at the bottom, which is, you know, we just developed a marketing department, and I was working as an assistant. Now, what was really cool about what we were sort of doing at the time is I got to really get an insight into lots of different areas of the business, because I needed to understand what this business was all about so I could market it properly. So yeah, I quickly got into, you know, how we tender for things, how that moves from when we win something to how it then gets onto site, all these people that we employ, all of these subcontractors that we have, where we got our supply, our materials from. It was this really complex beast. So I just spent a lot of time really sort of understanding the mechanics of how the business works. So then fast forward a few years, and we developed this a marketing strategy for the different aspects of the business, for the different service offerings. And then we actually went through a huge restructure in the business. And then that's where I led a big rebranding campaign. And I literally had like 8 weeks to create a new brand, a communications and a marketing strategy, but it all had to be done in secret. So it was me.
Yeah.
It was me and a very small marketing agency who pulled all of that together. And I did a lot of it off site. And this was in a period of time where you didn't really work from home. And so there was lots of sneaking around and trying to do, where's Sophie? What's Sophie doing? I was like, I'm just, very busy on sites and I don't know, making up all sorts of stuff. Anyway, we did that. We launched that, and that was 12 years ago now that happened. And then from there, I really started to identify areas in the business that I thought could improve, in the sense of, if we just tweaked these things, if we just did these things a little bit differently, we would really be able to differentiate in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. So I would liaise with the department heads, with the offices, with sites, just to really try and push ourselves so we were being identified in the marketplace as something a little bit different than our competition. And I think what that did is it made me super visible in the business. And I took that like tenacity and that not giving up and not letting anyone stand in my way attitude that developed when I became a mum for the first time, and really channeled that into how I sort of acted in work, my behaviors in work. And that really allowed me to springboard my career. So then I took on much more responsibility. And, before you know it, I was responsible for HR, the customer experience, social value, sales, marketing, communications. And really what I learned in that process is how important all aspects are of the business. But if you've not got sort of like a special connection that connects all of these elements of business, it's sort of irrelevant what we're doing, because they all need to speak to each other, and we need to be able to communicate that not just to our customers but our employees as well. And that, for me, I then developed this passion around people. So people within our communities, people within our customer base, and then people within our organization, and really bringing all of that together. And for me, that created a really special differentiator for us. And yeah, I guess that was me. Funnily enough, I became director on April Fool's Day during COVID. I thought they were taking the piss.
Congratulations, you've been promoted. It's April Fool's Day.
So I became a stat director on April Fool's Day.
Which joker chose that?
I was like, you guys are so mean. But I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the date. April the 1st, 2020.
April 1st, 2020.
Yeah.
I'll thank you for sharing your story so far, in terms of where it kind of started off, and before we move on to kind of COVID and how that affected you and everything. I just want to sort of take a minute to reflect on a couple of the points that you made. So I'm imagining, I'm putting myself in the shoes, in your shoes of being 18 and then suddenly finding out I was pregnant and going
Yeah,
from a particular lifestyle to suddenly
yeah.
you haven't really got, you haven't got all of the comforts and things like that you've been able to rely on up until that point. And I can imagine feeling completely overwhelmed. And it's interesting, when you said that you were born in that, for yourself, you were born in that situation. And seem to have found, like, dug really deep within yourself and found some conviction, that is, I'm going to do it and I'm going to make it work and I'm going to make this happen. Like, where does that come from?
I think it's a really good question, that, Nikki. And I've often tried to reflect on that myself to really understand where that comes from. I do think there is an element of natural personality. I think there is definitely an element of you're born with that. But I also think that you have to really, really believe in something. And for me, that was bringing my daughter into this world, and absolutely nothing was going to tell me that I couldn't do something. There was no one on this planet who was going to tell me that I couldn't bring a baby into the world at 18 years old. Listen, when I look back now, I think, Jesus, Sophie, you were completely insane. But I also look back and think, my God, am I proud of you? I'm so proud of the 18-year-old Sophie, who didn't take any crap, who just really, dug deep and made the best of a really crappy situation. I'm not gonna, there's no other way of being able to spin it. It wasn't ideal. And there were some real challenges there. But I made it work, Nikki. And I was, I made damn sure that every time me and my little girl walked out of our house together, we were immaculately dressed. We were, we looked good. We were healthy. We were happy. We were, she was my little best friend. It was just me and her against the world. And to an element, it still is a little bit. Sometimes I look back and I think, oh God, it was so much pressure on a little human being for them to be such a huge part of my drive. But she really was. She really, really was. And, it absolutely has made me the person that I am today. It gave me a strength. It gave me a tenacity. That I'm so grateful for, because I just don't think I would be the person or in the position that I am in right now without having that experience. And I look back and I think it was really difficult and we had some very challenging times, but it, sometimes beautiful things come out of really horrible situations. It's just how you deal with them. It's just the attitude that you have towards them. You can let crappy things take over and get the better of you, or you can make the best out of the situation. And that's exactly what I did. If you'd asked me this at the time, I don't think I recognized it within that moment what I was actually doing. It's only when you reflect and you look back and you think, Jesus Christ, so if that was some pretty epic shit that happened. But in the moment, yeah. I was just getting through life, Nikki. I was just thinking, I'm just living one day at a time. We're getting through this. We will do this. And that's how it felt, really. But looking back, you think, no, there was fight and there was fire in there.
And that's really the sort of the energy and the sense of it that I get. And also the other part of, as you were kind of, once you went to work within the family business, and as you say, starting off at the bottom and then gradually working your way up and taking on more responsibility. But the thing that struck me was the level of visibility.
Yeah.
You talk about, so suddenly everyone knows who you are, and then suddenly there's expectations on you. How did that feel? Because I'm kind of guessing you've
Mm.
also needed to sort of rally that same level of self-belief of, I can do this and I'm going to do this, and nothing's going to stop me.
Yeah, that's it's so true. And what's really quite um interesting is when you're so I joined the family business, and what I hadn't quite appreciated at the time was how many people knew of me, but I didn't necessarily know of them. I had the surname that was written above the door, so everybody knew who I was. I was the daughter of the owner, and I was the daughter of the person who was in charge. So everybody knew who I was. Now that brought with it expectations from day one.
It's a bet.
So I had to be my best self all of the time. I had to make sure that I worked really hard. I had to make sure that I was always sort of what's the phrase? Sort of I understood that I was under a microscope a little bit. So any mistake that I made was amplified. But actually any success that I had was probably just like, well, yeah, she should do that. She should know how to do that. And that was sort of expected. So the pressure was really quite a lot. um, but I just sort of took that same approach, which was I just dug deep and I just got on with it, and used that as a way of, again, just sort of saying to the world, well, I'm going to do it, and I'm really, really going to do it. And I have a lot of pride in myself, and I have a lot of pride in my work, that I want it to be a success. I've often heard and listened to conversations around imposter syndrome, and there being a real negative conversation around imposter syndrome. Now, I always talk about, I have a little person that sits on my shoulder, which says to me, well, everybody just thinks that you're only here not because you're any good. It's just because of your surname and the blood that's running through your veins. It's not, you're not here because you're actually talented or you're intelligent or any of those things. Oh, I have a little person that sits on my shoulder who tells me that quite often. But I also have another person who sits on the other shoulder,
Yeah.
which goes, well, who gives a shit if that's what they think? Then just get on with it. You know what you do. You know how hard you work. You know the effort that you put in, and just keep going, Soph. Just, I have such a drive within me to make things better, to get the best out of people, to get the best out of situations, to get to fulfill potential, whether that's within myself or someone else or the business as a whole. I have a real passion around that, Nikki, and that's not something that I can ignore. It's there within me as well. So when you've got those two things, but the thing about the person that's sitting on my right shoulder, which is telling me that no one thinks I'm any good and that I'm only here because of my surname, is also just as much of a driver. So I don't ignore it. I listen to it, but it drives me in a way where I feel quite grateful that I've got that there. One, it keeps me grounded and it keeps me really humble. But two, it really does drive me to just go, well, get on with it then. Just do it. Just, and it creates I keep talking about fire, don't I? Fire within
Yes,
me.
you do. Yeah.
It creates another fire within me to just really try and succeed. Um,
Is the drive to prove it wrong? Because it sounds you've got this
yeah,
going on. You've got like the the negative voice almost, and then you've
yeah,
got the positive one just go and be amazing anyway, be your amazing damn self type of thing, you know.
yeah.
And I wonder whether it's part of the drive to just keep pushing ahead and keep doing the thing and showing yourself that you're doing it. And so by virtue of keeping on continually demonstrating to yourself that you're the person who does the thing,
Hmm.
despite whatever, the sort of niggles and the
Hmm.
doubts might be, that over time that loses some energy and it loses some
Hmm.
power over the way that you think.
Yeah, I think the power element is really important here, Nikki, because I think it's definitely at times had greater power than it should. And I've often like sort of reflected on what does that really mean? Am I trying to convince people that I am worthy of being here? And sort of what are those negative thoughts, how are they driving me, or are they really dragging me? Sort of where does that come from? um but I've come to just sort of accept that that's part of who I am. I've come to accept that that is part of my situation, um and really try and change the energy around it, so it's not it doesn't come, so really purposefully making sure that it doesn't drive any negative behaviors, that actually what I do is see it as a positive and see it as and I'm actually really grateful for that, because it makes me be better. It makes me want to improve. It makes me want to learn. It makes me want to make sure that I'm well prepared when I go into meetings, because I don't want it to win.
Yeah.
I don't want those thoughts of, people being sat around a table that I'm sat around, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they only think I'm here and I'm not worthy to be here. I'll make damn sure that I'm worthy to be there. I will do my research. I will, and I'll prepare, um, and I'll really try and find solutions for problems. So actually, I just changed the energy around it. It's not negative. It's a positive thing, and I'm really grateful for it. Um, and it just drives all of the more positive behaviors, like that, developing, continuing to develop myself, like continuing to learn things, to always try and aim to be the best version of myself. And then that builds confidence within me to know that it's okay, I know my stuff, I'm all right, I can walk into that room and I'm all right, I'm okay. um
Mhm.
so yes, I think, yeah, I think that power element and that and just changing the energy around it is where I found real benefit.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of reflect a couple of things back to you, actually, the first thing is, you were talking earlier, like say whether it's I'm going to have my child even though I'm only kind of 18, 19, that there's that kind of mindset, and then also I'm going to make this role a success. I'm going to do it, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to let anyone tell me that I can't. It's almost as though you do that to yourself as well, as
Yeah.
if I'm going to do it. And even if there's part of me saying I can't, to hell with it. Like, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just going to keep on going. And then the other reflection, Sophie, is, because at the power within, so we train a lot on motivational intelligence, and it's the power of your mindset. And so what we're looking at and what we're trying to help people understand is the
Mm-hmm.
correlation between what you believe and then the
Mm-hmm.
results that you see in your life. And
Mm-hmm.
what really strikes me from what you're saying is that if you chose, or didn't really sort of consciously choose, but if you bought into the belief that no one really thinks I should be here, I'm only here because of my name. I'm not, people don't think I'm that good at what I do. If you bought into that belief, your
Mm-hmm.
actions would be radically different, wouldn't they? To compared to what we're seeing today, which is I'm not
Mm-hmm.
buying into that bullshit. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can do it and I will do it. So can you tell me what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, Uh, it's quite difficult to articulate because I'm a very feelings kind of a girl. So it for me, it just comes from, it really does come from within me. And it's just I think it goes back to what I was saying about not not really trying to not associate negativity around sort of negative thoughts, because it brings you down, really, at the end of the day. I think it, and I can tell within a second when someone walks into the room if they are confident or not. And it turns me off if it's someone who's really not confident within
And how
themselves.
can you tell? Like, what sort of things are you picking up?
It's body language, it's tone of voice, it's stuttering, it's not knowing their stuff, um it's really just not being sort of, there not being a strength there. Now, don't get me wrong, Nikki, this isn't about being the loudest person in the room, because that can also be someone who's not very confident. This is about an individual is who has a strength within them that you can't really deny. So I've been in rooms where you've had someone really quite loud in the room, taking over conversations, taking over meetings. And I'm sat there thinking, they don't know what what they're actually saying is bullshit. I can't really take you seriously. And then you notice someone else in the room who's quietly sat there. You can just see, they give off an energy, and they might say one or two things and think, nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And I have so much respect for the people who sort of have that confidence about them. And they're the people who know their shit, who aren't afraid to say it, who can challenge but also support. It's that. And I think that that's the type of person that I want to be. So whether I'm driven by the more negative part of me or the more positive part is kind of irrelevant. I just want to show up in, whether that's professionally, personally, whatever, and I want to know what I'm doing and not be afraid in any room. That's what's important to me.
And that's what gives you that sort of, the level of calm. And because you need to have that sort of, I don't know what the word is, but it's this kind of aura around you, which is, I'm not desperate, I'm not trying to prove anything, I know my worth, I know I can add value here, and so let's kind of get into it. And I think from what you're saying as well, there seems to be this deep appreciation within you around people, like leaders in particular, being honest, being honest and kind of authentic, which I know we chuck the word around a lot, but really being honest and acting with integrity and being human rather than trying to be perfect.
Absolutely. I think it is. It's a real superpower for leaders to be able to be vulnerable. I've seen so many examples of when you can just cut through the bullshit with someone, and you can't build trust on that. You can't buy into what a leader is saying, selling, whatever. You just can't. So I've learned in some very difficult times in my role as a leader that I think my most successful moments as a leader have been when I've been vulnerable with my teams. So an example of this is during COVID. So it was hard. I didn't know what the bloody hell I was doing, right? I we just furloughed a load of people. Until that moment, I'd never even heard of the word furlough. You know, it wasn't a common phrase that was often used, and particularly in the UK, it's not necessarily something that we're used to doing or managing. Now, I had become director and I was responsible for HR. Nikki, I didn't know what I was doing.
That's a baptism of fire, isn't it?
Terrifying, right?
Yeah.
So I was just honest with people. I was just saying to them, look, guys, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, you know, but all I can tell you is that I will work so hard for you. I will try my best. I will read up on everything, and we will get through this. And what is something that I find that has actually really sort of tethered me to making great decisions is some of the values that we have in our business. And I know that sounds like a really cliche, like cheesy thing to say, and you often hear people like businesses say it, but genuinely, right, one of our values that we have to sign up to as shareholders within my family business is looking after the interest of our employees. Now, I held on to that during those really difficult times. So I would say to teams and the business, you have, as I would say to them, I'm worried about this. I don't know what's happening. This is really scary. This is completely insane. I said, but what you can absolutely guarantee from me is that I will look after your interests, because making sure that you are okay is my main responsibility. So we just made some very, very quick decisions to change how we were communicating to our people. We changed the messaging that we were giving them. And we absolutely made a real shift from just trying to get the most productivity out of people to really, really genuinely taking care of people's well-being. And that is what we did. But it was only because I was able to be vulnerable with my teams in that moment where I was going, oh my God, I'm so scared. Is anyone feeling so scared right now? Because what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
That we were able to have those really open and honest conversations with each other. And I was able to understand from our employees what they needed from us as a business, because I was able to say, oh my God, what the hell?
Oh my God, no, that's exactly it. And do you know, it makes me think, you know, like in some of the days in my leadership career, I felt pressure and responsibility because I was a leader to always have the answers no matter what. And so actually when something like COVID happens and something called furlough is going to happen, you know, we don't know what it is. It is really difficult, as you say, because you actually haven't got all of the answers. And so I think it's a question of leadership maturity at that point to say, you know, I'm gonna be human. I'm going to say I haven't got the answers. I'm not going to try and pretend that I've got all the answers for something that none of us have ever been through before, you know, because it's necessary. And lead from a place of being honest and open and showcasing the values as you did to really build people's trust in you. Because if you hadn't gone about it in that way, you could have lost the trust like that, you know, so fast.
I think another really important part though of vulnerability is appreciation of diversity. Now, what I mean by that is that in all the moments of challenge that I've had as a leader, and I can foresee some challenge in our future as well, not just for us, but for our sector as a whole. And I think what's really, really important is for us as leaders to say to our teams, guys, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard, but we will get through it. That's number one. You can trust me that we'll get through it some way or another, but I haven't got all the answers. But together as a team, we'll find a solution. So let's come together and let's work out a plan. And to, I think being vulnerable is one thing, but showing people that there's a solution, that there's light at the end of the tunnel is equally as important. But bringing your teams on board to come up with the way in which you reach that light at the end of the tunnel also enables and builds on that trust. Because I think you'd be pretty screwed as well if you just went, oh my God, things are really hard and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I just end it there. I mean, I think you'd lose trust. You'd lose trust just like that as well. You think, who's this nutcase leading the business or leading the department or whatever?
It's the mindset. It's the mindset though that we want to go for, which is this is really difficult, but we'll definitely find a way through. Which actually is a bit of a theme, Sophie, when we're looking at the big kind of points in your life. It's like, this is really difficult. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I know I will do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So how much for you in your own leadership journey and your kind of career development when it comes to leadership, how much kind of formal training have you had for that, whether it's leadership or management, compared to going through the experience and picking it up?
Yeah, okay. So I absolutely think that investing in training and management development in the more formal sense is super duper important, because it allows you to develop your self-awareness. And I think having self-awareness as a leader is so important. I need to understand where my strengths are, and I need to understand what my weaknesses are, and I need to understand them in context of different situations. Now, I wouldn't have been able to do that on my own. I needed formal support around that. So with support from my business, they invested in me in coaching, mentoring, networking. Actually, was a really good one for me. But I also had formal, I had, went and got qualifications. I went back to university, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that was incredibly valuable to me. Nothing beats experience, though. You have to live it. You have to live it. And I hear, I speak to a lot of women, particularly, who say, yeah, but how do I get to the next thing without, I've not, there's no opportunity for me to progress to the next level. So how can I manage? Just flipping do it. Nothing. There were points in my career where I didn't have the opportunity. So I went out and found it. I looked for opportunities in the business where I thought, there could be improvements, or there could be, and these were just slight little tweaks. Now, I spent a lot of time internal networking, building relationships up. And like we were saying before about that visibility aspect, is I was asking people to collaborate with me. Now, it was interesting because I used marketing. I used and abused the marketing sort of vocab, shall we say, to get into meetings. So I was like, so I need to understand how this works so I can help you market, so I can help you do this, so I can help you do that. Yes, there was that. But I was just really wanting to understand how I could make things better so I could propel myself.
Yeah.
And also there were aspects that I genuinely had interests in, that I just wanted to learn more about. So I would ask to go to meetings. I would ask to be involved in things. Now, I got told no a lot, but I also got told yes. So when I was in the meetings, when I was able to contribute, I did loads of research. I learned about what I needed in that moment so that I was able to contribute. And that really helped. But so for women out there who are finding it really challenging to progress through, up the career ladder, is you just need to be seen, and you just need to ask to be involved in projects, in meetings, in whatever. You will get told no, but you will get a yes as well. But going back to your original point, sorry, Nikki, is that yes, it's really important to have those formal development, and really investing in management training. But there is nothing like experience. There's only so much you can learn in a textbook. I think the rest has to come from living in it. Now, I've learned post school that the best way for me to learn is to just be, absolutely in it up to my eyeballs and just working through it in that moment, and using the skills that come naturally to me, and don't. I think the other really important element, though, around this whole leadership and management thing is having great people around you. I think you need to find people who believe in you. You need to have people who can support you. You need people who can call you out as well. You can say, oh my God, don't do that again. That was horrendous. And, or do you know what? You actually smashed that. You smashed it in that meeting. You need people around you to help give you that little bit of confidence. Now, if you've not got that at the minute, try and seek it. But one of the best things I think I ever did was I used to ask people all the time. I used to ask people for feedback all the time. So I'd be like, how do you think I did that? Like, what could I have done? I was like, please just don't tell me like all good stuff. I want to know bad stuff too, but please don't tell me all bad stuff. Like, give me some good stuff too, because my ego can't take it. And I would just ask people constantly, how did I do that? And, what could I have done better? Was there anything that I did really, really well? And the feedback I got was invaluable because it was coming from within. I genuinely wanted to know their opinions, and that helped me progress as well, for sure.
It's funny when you say about, because so much of what you're demonstrating in terms of like how you think and how you act it's representative of really super high motivational intelligence, right? And so what I mean by that is it's this mindset of let me learn, let me get out there and ask questions. So it's really about this growth mindset of saying it's okay not to know everything. It's really okay to ask and to learn and to try and to experiment and to fail maybe, and that's not the end of things either. And when it comes to things like asking for feedback, because I spend a lot of time coaching women, and very often they will have, because a lot of women, obviously, as we know, it's imposter syndrome, it's a lack of self-confidence. And so a lot of the women will imagine that they know what people would say about them if we ask for feedback. And so I'll say, well, yes, but so when's the last time you did some 360 feedback? Oh, well, I haven't done it, or I did it 3 years ago or something like that. And it's like, you need to get out there and you need to be asking the question, because even though you might imagine and you might get really, terrified that people are going to come back and just trash you and pick up on all of the weak spots you're aware. Actually, what you'll find most of the time is that there's reams and themes of these are the things that you do really well that actually the woman hasn't really given herself any credit for, because she's so much caught up in the whirlwind of all the negativity and the self-doubt. And so it's always and I always think of feedback as being a bit like a Christmas gift, like it's a little bit of a surprise, but actually maybe you kind of know what's going to come, but it just seals the deal, and it's really reassuring and really reinforces the things that you're doing really well. So I think for anybody who's listening here, the 3 questions that I always get people to ask is, can I have feedback on what do you see as my top strengths? Where do you think that I could, what are the things I could do to have an even greater impact as a leader? And then if you've got a team, what more could we as a team be doing? And that's a really, because you're not opening the doors for negativity. Actually, the way you're positioning the questions are, tell me what I'm great at, tell me something that will help me be even more impactful in my role as a leader, and tell me something that you wish my team and I were doing or not doing, something like that. And so you're going to get constructive feedback that you can actually do something with and feel good about,
Yeah. And my experience of that is, especially when you're sort of eye to eye, like sat in front of someone, they're not going to roast you. They're just not going to do it, because we're British and we're far too polite. So we just would never,
no,
you would never do it. You'd be like, well, maybe like you could just think about, like, it's always delivered in the most beautiful of ways. And it gave me so much confidence doing that. And the first few times I did it, I was petrified, because I was thinking, exactly what you were describing there. I was thinking, oh my God, everyone just, and also don't forget, I've got the little man on my shoulder who tells me that I'm useless, and the only reason why I'm in the position that I'm in is because I've got the right surname. So I was sort of opening myself up to give power to that little person that says all those things to me. Nobody ever said that once to me. Nobody ever said that to me. If anything, I got the other man that was sat on my other shoulder, who was going, no, you're really good at this, just keep going, just keep doing it. That's the feedback that I got. They were saying things like, you're really tenacious, you don't give up, and actually there was a lot of empathy from people when I was asking those questions. So there was a lot of, God, you must find it really tricky in your situation. And, and then a lot of questions will come back to me, like, how do you find like that, those types of situations? And it would open up these beautiful conversations around, my experiences, their experiences. And I just would love for more people to be brave enough to just put themselves out there in that moment and just ask for the feedback, because, like I say, you won't get roasted. You just won't.
No,
you just won't.
No, and I think, the interesting thing when you're talking about this, your personal experience, and having the surname, and everybody kind of knows who you are, that at the end of the day, if you weren't very good, you just wouldn't last in the business, and so it's like, well, you might have a surname, but are you also making a hugely valuable contribution towards the business? Yes. Okay. So then it's like, it's a bit of a moot point. Yeah. Because I can imagine there will be plenty of people who get invited to, come and join the family business, and then they either don't love it, don't want to get involved, don't want to break a sweat. Well, they're not going to last very long,
No.
So you've got to kind of, you've got to be there and be visible and making a valuable contribution. So, and I guess it's kind of after you've demonstrated that enough over enough time, and how long's enough, but the people just would let go of the position type of thing.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it can be applied to anyone, to be honest, Nikki, because I think us as women fall into that whole, oh God, we shouldn't be here, we're not as good as the others, that whole imposter syndrome thing. It's like, just change its energy, make it drive you, and challenge it. Be like, okay, well, if that's what people think of me, then I'll just go and ask them, is that what you think about me?
Yeah.
And they will not, they absolutely will, unless you're completely crap, then And they're not. And do you know
Yeah.
what? Some of the best feedback I've had was, let's call it constructive.
Yes.
It was the best feedback because I was thinking, oh my God, right, okay, I really need to brush up on that, or I really need to just change the way I do that. And, again, it can't it can't put you in a place of like self wallow or anything. It has to drive you to be better. If you've got ambitions, if you've got goals, go and seek out where you need to be better because it'll get you to your goal quicker. I can assure you that. But you need to understand your weaknesses as well as your strengths. You really, really do. And also sometimes some of my weaknesses, I know I can't really change. I can't really do anything about them. But because I'm aware of them, I can literally go, oh my God, I can feel myself doing that thing. So I'm really sorry, guys. Just bear with me. I'm a bit stressed.
Yeah.
I can feel myself being like this. And I've had feedback before that people don't appreciate it when I sort of take over the room, or they don't appreciate when I do this, they don't appreciate that. And I'm really, I can feel myself doing that. These are the reasons why. Bear with me. And I think that is really important. It's really important to know that and to understand that and to do something about it. So yeah, although it's not very nice in the time and your ego gets really spoiled and really hurt, and you sit there at night going, oh my God, I'm just like, oh, I didn't really like that. Wake up the next day and do something about it.
That's the difference, isn't it? And I think the ability to separate whatever constructive feedback you get from your actual sense of self-worth. Because even if someone said, well, I don't really appreciate it when you take over the room, like to use your example,
Yeah.
that's a habit and it's a behavior. It's nothing to do with your value as a human being. And I think,
No.
what often happens is that people, I think, and I'd be interested to see what your take is on this. I think that part of the reason a lot of women are so terrified to ask for feedback is because they already know that their self-worth is pretty fragile, and that it actually isn't going to sustain a whole lot of bullets being,
Yeah.
fired at it. And so where's the motivation to want to ask then if you are feeling quite fragile? And so I think if someone's listening to that and thinking, yeah, actually, that probably explains why I don't want to go and get the feedback either, because I think I would make it mean something about me, and whether I'm any good or not, or whether I'm valuable or not, then this is a kind of invitation to do a bit more work on yourself and on your self-confidence, which is actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you. If you've got people listening to this who struggle with self-confidence and struggle with self-belief, because a lot of what I'm getting from you is high levels of self-awareness, and then high levels of self-belief and a real deep conviction, as if I set my sights on something, I'm going for it, and like anything else can just fall away, I'm going for it. Which is a wonderful mixture to have, but not everybody has that.
Yeah.
So if people are struggling at the self-confidence level and the self-belief level, what would your advice be to them to go and build it up? Like, how would somebody build it?
I think the first thing is, so what's coming to mind for me is, because there's absolutely been times in my career when I've not had self-belief, or I've not had particular confidence on something specific. And when I think back to that, I did loads of my own learning and research. So if it's around a particular topic or something, then I really went out and got to know my stuff. So I did loads of preparation. So that in itself really helps with building that self-confidence that, no, actually, I do know this because I've done a lot of research and I've read up on things and whatever. So, I've got that, I'm able to contribute knowing full well that what I am going to say is good. So I think that's one thing that people can do. I think going back to that point around asking for feedback, if you're in a position where your self-belief and your self-confidence is really, really quite low, do you know, I would really encourage women to be open and honest about it. So if they've got teams or if they've got managers, which I'm sure they will, is to have that conversation and say, do you know what? I'm really struggling with myself. I just don't think I'm really concerned that I'm not really doing a good a job as I would like to. And, you know, are you able to just give me some reassurance or you know, give me some, I'd really appreciate some feedback. But can you make it positive for me? Because just at this moment in time, I'm feeling a bit wobbly and I could just do with a little bit of a boost. Now, if someone from one of my teams came to me and said that, I'd be like, oh my God, EJ, you're amazing. You're like, I don't want you to be wobbly. I wouldn't have employed you if I thought you were rubbish, or you wouldn't be a part of my team if I didn't think you were any good. Yeah. So, you know, and just, I think it is about, Nikki, I just want women to find that strength within them, because there is another part of this, which is you can't rely on other people. You have to find it from yourself. And I know that's really, really challenging and really difficult, but every person who is listening to this will have something that drives them, whether it's their family or a particular situation, or they've got a goal, or something will be driving them, and they need to put their energy into that and just find it within themselves to believe, because really the only person that they can count on is themselves. So I don't know if that's the right thing that I should be saying to you, but I think I just would love it if more women particularly found that strength within them to believe in themselves. I really, really do. I really do.
I agree with you 1,000,000%, because and it's, for me, like, all of that is the sort of self-leadership thing, and it's and what that means in my world is, like, I take responsibility for me. So if I'm not happy with me, I need to do something about it. If I'm not happy with my work or my relationship or my body or my fitness level or something, I need to do something about it. Like, I can't put the responsibility onto anybody else, because no one else can actually give me all of the things that I really want for myself. And where I can see a lot of people going wrong, and not necessarily intentionally, is kind of outsourcing responsibility to other people for the things that other people can't do for you. You know, they just can't do it for you. And one of those big things is your mindset. You know, so you have to be willing to say to yourself, have I got a good and healthy and positive mindset? And it's not about pretending that there's no problems, or pretending that everything's perfect in your life or anything like that, and that it's all sunshine and roses, but it is about committing to yourself to be a bit disciplined in the way that you think, to be a bit kinder to yourself and a bit more encouraging and uplifting, and creating upward spirals in terms of how you think about yourself and your potential and you know, and your future, rather than getting caught in the negative spirals that's just going to, you know, land you in a heap on the floor. And so the more that we can take responsibility for the health of the way that we think and the health of our mindset, and actively get to work by listening to things like these podcasts, or watching uplifting films, reading uplifting books, finding people, and making sure you've got some people in your life, whether you know them or not, or it's on social media or not, but people that you resonate with, that you love listening to, that you feel a little bit better having spent the time listening to what they've got to say. And making that choice that I'm always going to try to help myself along the road, and be a sort of like supportive friend to myself, rather than my biggest enemy who's just standing there ready to shoot. At the minute, I don't get something completely perfect.
Mm.
And and I'm sure you'll have kind of experienced this maybe within yourself, Sophie, but also with other women in your life, is that there's this tendency for us to be kind and loving and compassionate, understanding and patient and encouraging with everyone around us. And yet when it comes to ourselves, the minute that we think we're not perfect on something, it's just this barrage of self-loathing and self-hate,
Mm-hmm.
which is never going to lead you
Mm-hmm.
to a good place. It's just
Mm-hmm.
always going to keep you on the back foot. And actually, in today's world, you can't afford to rob yourself
Mm-hmm.
the encouragement that you could be providing to yourself, because you need all the help you can get to make to make a kind of a happy and fulfilling life for yourself.
And I think all of that is, I completely agree with every single word that you have just said, but it's really easy to say. And
Mm-hmm.
it's flipping difficult to do in reality, because I think as women, we have so much pressure um, in society, in from families, from to be this perfect person. We're supposed to be a wonderful friend. We're supposed to be a great mother, a great sister, and a really good manager and a really good team leader. It's impossible to be all of those things all at once. I mean, it's just completely crazy. And one of the things that I have learned in my journey is that inner voice that I've had. I've talked a lot today about how I'm, really try and be positive, and I've got this fire within me, and I've got all of this intent, and, I've got a goal and I'll smash it and all those sorts of things. My inner voice is horrible to me at times, like really, really nasty. It can say really horrible things to me. And I've really had to work hard to learn how to manage that inner voice of mine. And one of the things that I do is when that voice comes in and says really quite mean things to me, I literally talk back and say, you wouldn't say that. My best friend is called Charlotte. And I was like, you wouldn't say that to Charlotte. Why are you saying it to me? You
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say that to Olivia, my oldest daughter. You wouldn't say that to Olivia. Why are you saying that to me?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't say that to, I literally name people who I love the most. And I say, would you say that to them? No. You would never in a million years, Sophie, say that to them. So they're the people that I love. And then I go, you wouldn't even say that to a stranger on the street. You wouldn't even say that to someone that you absolutely despise. I think of the people who have hurt me the most, who I really, really dislike. And I think, you wouldn't even say that to them. So why the hell are you saying that to you, Sophie? Stop it. Stop it now.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I am not perfect with that. I have still got a long way to go with keeping that horrible Sophie quiet. And she comes up again now and again, but I really do try to talk back and say, "Nuh-uh, you're not. No, we're not listening to that, because we wouldn't say that to anybody else. So why are we saying it to me?" And actually, one of the things that on good days, I'll put a caveat in there. On good days, I am even able to go, we're just going to rephrase that. So we're not going to say, so if you're an absolute idiot, you shouldn't, you really are just, you shouldn't. Why on earth were you invited on the Power Within Her podcast? Because you've got nothing good to say. We'll turn that around and we'll go, do you know what? You're brilliant, Soph. How grateful are you that you got invited onto the Power Within Her? Let's make sure you make it a really good one, shall we? It's those conversation words are so powerful.
Yeah.
And that's on a good day. On a bad day, sometimes you're too tired. You just think, oh, I'll just let the horrible Sophie win. Be mean to me for a bit, whatever. I'm tired. I'll go to bed early, whatever. Or I'll go and like work it out in the gym or something like that. I'll go for a run. I'll run it out. But yeah, it's so difficult at times to live with a negative voice in your head. It's really hard. It's really hard. And for anybody who's listening out there, listening to this, who can relate, I just want to give you a big hug because I know how that feels. Something that I've not spoken about publicly, like at all, is I developed an eating disorder. Now, when we look at eating disorder, or when you look at eating disorders, it's all about how you can control situations, and particularly with people with personalities like mine, where you are very driven and you are very goal orientated.
Mhm.
Eating disorders can really take a hold, and it was a horrible, horrible, horrible disease that I had to really use all of those attributes to recover from. And I don't know if it's something that I'll ever fully recover from. So when I'm talking about that horrible little voice in my head, it's the voices there telling me that I should be doing something or I shouldn't be doing something or whatever. And it's really, really hard, and it's exhausting at times, and it can take a real toll on my days. But I know I've done hard things in my life, and I continue to do hard things in my life. And I'm pretty sure I'll come up against more hard things in my life to come.
Mhm.
And one thing I know about myself is I can flipping well do it when I put my head to something, I will do it. So yeah, yeah. So, bring it on, basically. And actually it is about that, giving things different energies. And I can be really sad about things, or I can be really grateful for the experiences that I've had, which have enabled me to become the version of Sophie that I am today. And I am damn excited to meet the future Sophie, because I think she'll be even cooler. Because I'll learn a lot. I've still got a lot to learn. I've still got a lot of things to go through, I'm sure. Yeah, and I'm excited to meet her, because I think she'll be cool if she carries on with that attitude of we'll get through it. We'll get through it.
100%. So, how do you see yourself in the future? Because I always think that we talk a lot about vision,
Yeah.
and I'm huge on having a vision for the person that you want to be, so that you can see what she's like, and you also understand what is the gap between the version I am today and the version that I aspire and want to be. So, who was it for you?
So for me, I think future Sophie is she is really, really comfortable in her own skin, and she exudes a confidence, and she inspires others through her vulnerability and her empathy. And she is, no matter how old she is, she'll still be quite young, like quite youthful, quite playful,
Mhm.
still have that fun element to her. Um, and I'm really looking forward to meeting the version of myself who knows herself the most, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Because I don't think I feel as though I know myself more now than I ever have done. And there's parts of me that I loved so much, and there's bits that I really don't like. And I hope that my future Sophie loves her whole self.
And will future Sophie love her whole self because all parts are good, or because she's okay with the shadow side?
She's okay with the shadow side.
Innocent.
Yeah, that's it. It's just fully accepting my whole self, and knowing that I am flawed, but that's okay.
Mhm.
And I don't need to be perfect all of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That for me, the word that kind of comes to me, when you describe that, is integration.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, it's real integration of like,
yeah,
I know who I am, I know what I'm great at, I know the shadow side, and I accept all of it. And I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to try and shove it under the rug, you know. That's incredible. Listen, one other question I wanted to pick up on, because you mentioned at the start, when we first started talking, was specifically about the construction industry. And you
yeah,
were talking about your love and your passion for it.
yeah,
And you mentioned that it's, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think it was that it was kind of misunderstood by
yes.
a lot of people. Can you tell us about that, and what is it that you love so much about it?
Okay. So I think the sector is really misunderstood because it still has this, it still has this perception that it's full of, and I'm sorry, boys, but it's full of old hairy men that are, that it's just dirty and it's cold and it's hard work and it's, you know, it's just not a very nice environment. It couldn't be further from the truth. The real construction sector is, it's fast paced, it's really exciting, you're creating things, you have to be really quick thinking, you've got to be brilliant at problem solving, you've got to be fantastic at managing projects. I mean, there's elements of construction that I could not do because I'm far too on to the next thing, on to the next thing. Um, but you have to be so good at sort of managing end to end. You have to be fantastic with people. It's all about people, our sector. And I think that's the other thing that is really misunderstood, is it's all about relationships. And the most successful projects that I've been involved in have been because the relationships between people have been absolutely fantastic. Problems have come really early on, solutions have been made quickly, and people move on and just get on with it. And I think that's what people don't understand about the sector. We are crying out for people to join this industry, and we desperately need people who can see the future, who can find solutions, who are really great at adapting to change, who can really push boundaries. That is who we need to join our sector. And, you know, I'm really happy that you've asked me that question, because I want to talk about this in as many different mediums as I can, because I just think it's so important that we teach all age groups. It doesn't matter where you're from, how old you are, about the sector and what it requires, because I'm talking to people in schools who are completely turned off by our sector because it still has this perception of what I was saying before. And it's just not the case. It just isn't the case. And if we can get away from, you know, all our sector is just putting brick on top of brick outside, to we're literally transforming communities. We have, you know, we are literally creating buildings that will stand the test of time, that our future generations will look back on and go, oh my God, how cool is that? Like we do now when we go into, you know, when we're tourists in places, that's what we can be a part of. Now that is pretty damn cool.
Very.
Yeah, it's very cool. So yeah, so I think that's why. I mean, I hope that you can. I'm so passionate about
I can
people
feel
in
it.
general. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about people in general, and I just
Yeah.
think that our sector, the bit that is misunderstood the most for me is that people element. And yeah, just need more people to come in to the sector because it's bloody brilliant.
Yeah. So what advice would you give? I'm thinking for women specifically,
Mm-hmm.
who don't really know that much about the sector, what advice would you give them to, like, how can they find out more about
Mm.
what opportunities are there, what career paths might exist?
So I think one of the best things that women can do is go to certain networking events. So Women in Construction is one of them. And Michaela, who runs Women in Construction, is just absolutely fantastic. And she offers so many different types of events where women can get involved in. She's even got a flipping WhatsApp group that people just can drop in and connect with. And there's always opportunities on there in terms of training, and job opportunities, work experience, and there's such a variety of people within the network as well. And yeah, it's just about getting out and asking questions. LinkedIn is brilliant as well. I mean, I've made some fantastic connections on LinkedIn, and I just, drop people messages, ask them what they do, how they got into it, how they got into what they the career that they're in. Yeah, I guess that's what I would suggest. I think when we've spoken a lot about building people's confidence and how women can do that, we're really good at doing that for each other.
Yeah,
I think there's a wonderful, wonderful sisterhood within construction, because we are the minority in this sector, that we tend to really stick together and bolster each other up.
yeah.
So I think that using those network groups is a really powerful thing to do.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. So listen, I can't even thank you enough for sharing everything that you have done with us today. And in terms of the major themes that have come across, it's the self-belief, as we've said, the self-belief, the conviction,
Mm-hmm.
and having to dig deep and knowing that as and when there's challenges or difficult things that come along where you don't know how you're going to
Mm-hmm.
manage, you just know you're going to manage them. You
Mm-hmm.
know that somehow you're going to get through. And having that for yourself personally on a kind of self-leadership level, but then also when you're within your team, like with COVID, when that happened, and being able to have that mindset and to kind of, share that mindset with other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly inspiring. And so I'm not surprised when you're saying I'm really excited to meet future Sophie. She's going to have more challenges and more difficult things that get put on her plate, and she will tap into the same level of self-belief and that same conviction
Yeah.
of, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I know I'm going to do it. It's wonderful. So I'm really excited to stay in touch and
Yeah.
to see, and to see what's next for you. And thank you so much. Before I let you go, have you got any kind of parting words? So sometimes we ask people at the end of these interviews for what would your kind of life motto be? So what would your life motto be? And it's not that it's like necessarily to quote Buddha or something like that, but what would kind of sum up your advice to people?
Yeah. You won't be surprised when I say this to you, Nikki, but it's where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm not joking you. I live my life by that motto, because the most important bit for me is where there's a will. So I know that if I don't really care about something, or if I'm not really that bothered about something, it's just not going to happen. So I just need to leave it be. It's not for me. I'm
Yeah.
not, I won't make it happen. But where there's a will, where I really have passion around something, no matter what it takes,
Yeah.
there will be a way.
Yes. So and I think that's coming to, knowing what you want.
Yes.
So no matter what kind of like situation or difficulty or whatever it is, you know what you want, or in a new situation, you can figure out, right, what do I actually want to happen here? And do I want it enough? And that's when
Yeah.
the thinking and the plan comes into place.
Yeah, because when I say the most important bit of that motto is where there's a will, I literally can feel it within myself. You know what it's like if you can't be bothered doing something, there's
Yeah.
no will. So forget it. You'll find something else that you will have a will for,
Yeah.
and you'll feel it within yourself. You'll go, oh, I'm really excited about this, or I've got like, oh, there's a different shift in energy here, like I can be bothered to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning for this thing.
Yeah.
And that's where we put that's where I put my focus and my sort of energy and power into, because it will be a success. When it's the, oh gosh, I'm feeling a bit like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, or I just can't really be bothered, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen in the same way. Where, I mean, I can get things done that, when you feel a certain way, but it's not with the same conviction.
Yeah, conviction and connection and like the energy of like, let's
Yeah.
make it amazing. Yeah. I love that. Thank you. So there we go, everyone. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
has got me in trouble. It has got me in trouble.
Anything we need to know?
Definitely not. But I have to check myself sometimes because, that tenacity can get out of hand a little bit at times. So sometimes I do just need to rein it in a bit.
Yeah, there's a will, there's a way, but it's about your drive. And honestly, that comes across in buckets. Like, honestly,
Oh,
in
good.
bucketfuls. Is so, so driven and so goal oriented. And you've got a real goal getter type of vibe and mindset,
Yeah.
which I love. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Nikki, for having me. I've loved this conversation, and
Me too.
yeah, look forward to seeing you again.
Brilliant. Thank you. And can people connect with you on LinkedIn?
They can, yeah, LinkedIn, Sophie Seddon. And yeah, please, if you do connect with me, then drop me a message, because I'd love to have a chat with anyone who's interested in construction or just generally progressing through their career. I'd love to connect with them. So yeah, please do.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll include your LinkedIn profile in the comments section. So thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll see
Bye.
you. Take care. Bye.